Welcome to Emotion Ships, where we talk about the real reason everything happens for a reason. This is episode 6. I am your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my lovely co-host, Mallory Redmond.
Episode 6.
We're getting there.
It's big time.
6 episodes in.
Yeah.
How are you? How was your weekend?
My weekend was fine.
It sounds like it.
Whatever. It was fine. It's January in the Midwest, so everybody's sick and
Not doing so hot.
yeah. But I am holding on. I'm staying strong.
Yeah, I
So-
almost went down.
Yeah.
Which is super rare for me.
Right. That's
But-
how you know.
But I
it's
had
bad.
an absolutely crazy Saturday. Up super early, got into the restaurant by 7, and then I think I did not get home till 10 o'clock at night. And I went amongst 3 different organizations, worked on people in each, or worked with or on, depending upon which organization,
Right.
with people, and then had my wife's and sister-in-law's birthday party at table 33, and it was a very long day, not to mention to stay up late after I got home late to finish working on my material for my message the next day, and then
Right.
spoke twice Sunday morning. Sunday afternoon, it was on. Could I maintain the right mental position in order not to go down?
And the answer is no.
Well, it did not help that Saturday morning when I woke up. I've been working out, doing my 20-mile march.
Attaboy.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm not the best at is stretching, as we
Right.
as we talked about.
Yes.
And so Saturday morning, I woke up. I knew I had a big day in front of me. My hamstrings were ridiculously tight, and I leaned over. This sounds like my parents.
Yeah.
I leaned over the wrong way to put my shoes on.
Oh
and,
gosh, that is old man things.
yeah, fought the tightness and basically like tweaked something in my back. So I have a stiff back for that busy Saturday. That made things twice as bad.
Yeah.
And as you know the story, I worked at table for the first hour, had an 8:15 counseling appointment here at the church.
Mm-hmm.
And at 8:15, I leave the restaurant, right? So I'm
Right.
just
Running on Charlie time.
Yeah, a minute or so behind. We call that optimistic, compassionate time.
Oh, do we? Okay.
Yeah, that's what
Noted.
that's what that is.
Okay.
And I had 2 extra hot, as I order them, chais.
Yeah.
Somebody was busting my chops for my Instagram post that said a chai tea, because chai is just the word for tea. So technically, it's not supposed to be a TT.
Oh, that's redundant.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
We don't want it to be a TT.
Oh,
It is just a chai.
I really had no idea about that. Okay.
Yeah, it's a chai. And so I ordered 2. The young woman behind the bar put them in large glasses, made large ones, one for me and one for my lovely co-host.
Yes.
Yes,
I
sitting
do
across from
appreciate
me.
that. Uh-huh.
Hello, everyone tuning in via video.
Yeah.
I was trying to do too many things to get out of the car. I was a minute and a half late,
Right.
and put the large chai on top of the other large chai, which happened to be in my left hand.
Recipe for disaster.
Yeah, tried to grab my bag, my phone, my keys, and one more thing with my right hand, and
Right.
squeezed the cup a little too tight when it started to move, and ba-bam, it fell off and landed right in my lap. If you go on Instagram, you can see a beautiful picture of my jeans
your
from
pants.
behind
Right.
as to how much liquid spread everywhere. And so tweaking my back and my right QL being super tight, and then having an extra toasty
Bum
yeah
area.
extra toasty area did not make that 15-hour day any easier.
Sure. Well, that's a rough start for sure.
Yeah, and so then by the time we got around to talking twice on Sunday afternoon, I was worn out.
Yeah.
But thankfully, apart from some drainage, I recovered quite nicely.
Yeah, you're back on your feet, which I commend you because you actually, I wouldn't say you took the day off, but you worked from home a day or two.
I did.
I don't know that I've ever known you to do that.
Super rare.
Yeah.
But I did. I'm trying to get better at that whole
It's good.
withdrawal and rest.
Yeah. We're proud of you.
Thank you.
Yep.
So
Welcome back.
yeah, and then I took off this past week for a opportunity, a work event down in Florida.
Yes.
That was pretty interesting. It was for the Naples Winter Wine Fest.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, we'll tell stories about it later. But
Yes.
doing a little protection work down in Naples, Florida, and that was full of great stories.
Yeah.
But here we are,
Mhm.
episode 6. I thought we could start off with something that we have not done yet, and make it very quick. A product review.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this is a birthday present from my father. For those of you that are watching online, you can see that these are the new Apple AirPod. Is that right? Pros.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think
Sure.
they. Yeah, for earpods.
Yeah.
AirPods, earpods. What are they?
I don't know.
AirPods.
This is a terrible review.
well.
We don't even know what they're called.
Hold on.
Get on the Google.
I'm not. I'm looking them up. Hold on 1 second, ladies and gentlemen.
I will say, while you're doing that,
yes.
I have not these new ones.
They
Is
are
this
AirPods. by the way.
AirPods?
Yes.
So is this like the second?
This is version. I don't know if they consider them 3 or
Oh.
what. Or they're the pros.
Okay. Well, I don't know what version I have, but
Yeah.
they went through the washing machine and came out still working.
Wow.
So there's my product review.
Wow.
They're washable. Well, they're probably not technically washable, but
Wow.
I got
That's
a get out of jail
impressive.
free card with that one. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So go on. Tell us about the pros.
So my father bought these for my birthday. Took about 4 weeks for them to arrive, and these have a noise canceling feature to them. And I was shocked at how effective they are from a noise canceling standpoint.
Yes, every parent of young children is jealous right now.
Well, I felt prompted to grab them because, like normal, I don't always open my gifts right away.
What do you mean, like normal?
Well, I do this for Christmas, and it's just a weird part of who I am that the moment you open all of your gifts, Christmas is over.
Right. So you
Eh,
draw it out.
Yeah.
Have
And
you
so sometimes
yet opened them all?
No, I did. I usually get through them on Christmas Day. But when someone gives me a gift or it's late to arrive, sometimes I'll just leave it wrapped in my closet where I can see it or somewhere on the table. And it's kind of like this hidden surprise is still waiting for you.
That's really funny. I
Yeah.
understand it, but
Yeah.
that's really funny.
My wife laughs about it
Yeah,
all the
that's
time.
really dorky.
If I'm being super honest, I have a very nice bag. Very nice bag that was purchased for me as a gift by me
Okay.
a couple of years ago
Uh-huh.
that I have yet to open.
But you bought it. You know
I
what
know.
it is.
I know that I know what it is, but it's still there smelling new waiting for me when the timing is right.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
It's weird.
You know,
I know.
I'm reading this Enneagram book, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm really into the Enneagram right now. And the number that you've tested at, I just saw a little meme that said that you're a 3.
Yeah.
And they are impossible to buy for because they buy everything they want themselves. There is no truer thing
Yeah.
said about you. Okay, go on.
It has been said. Here's what I would say, getting back into our product review. I did not know if they would be worth it. I will say that the noise canceling feature is so good and legit. It is worth
Really?
it. I was prompted, talking about energy that is not always tangible or
Mhm.
that we're not always aware of
Mhm.
here on Emotion Ships episode 6. I was prompted to pick these up and take them with me when I was headed to Florida last week.
Okay.
And so literally I took the plastic off as I was sitting at CVG at the airport waiting to board my plane. So they had
That's
not.
how fresh this is.
Yes. And thankfully that prompting, that energy, right, was correct. No lie, I had a newborn baby sitting behind me. I say newborn, probably 6 months old, screamed the entire 2-hour flight.
Oh, those poor parents.
I could barely hear the baby through the noise canceling. I could still hear the baby, but barely. And every once in a while, because on these earphones, you just squeeze one of them and the noise canceling feature goes off. And so every once in a while, I wanted to hear what everything really sounded like.
Yeah.
And I was shocked
Yeah. You're
By
like, this does not sound good.
how loud this baby was.
Oh, I've been that parent before. That's really hard.
Yeah. really quick, take your headphones off and put these in your ears.
Oh, okay.
The noise canceling feature is there. They have to be in either of your ears. I just want you to feel this. And make sure you stay close to your mic so people can hear what this is like. Find the right one. Make sure you get them in there good.
Well, how do I know them?
Oh, you're going to hear it. She's putting them on, ladies and gentlemen. Just wait till it kicks in.
Oh, it feels like I'm going underwater.
Is that not wild?
I don't know what you're saying.
Oh, yeah, you can't. All right, take them out. Is that not wild? Yeah. So good, right?
A+, Apple.
Yeah, I would not say that there is a noticeable difference when it comes to the actual sound quality. Like, I think they're pretty similar to the previous AirPods. These are waterproof, so you can swim.
Oh, or wash them in the washing machine.
Or wash them if you're Mallory.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as noise canceling feature, I would buy these just for that.
Okay, but isn't that frustrating? Like if your 15-year-old son has those, isn't that frustrating if you're trying to talk to somebody and they have the noise canceling on?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. But that's why you just squeeze the right one. I have it set up.
If they know that you're trying to talk to them, yes.
Yeah, and it will turn on, and then you just hear like it's a normal.
Yeah.
You actually hear better than the former AirPods because now it has a microphone that you can hear people talk through it to you.
Brilliant. Those are great.
Yeah.
Take them on every airplane ride.
Now, because we were unable, because Apple drug their feet in approving our podcast, and we were unable to give away the Yeezys.
Well, I mean, they had 30 minutes to 30 days.
Well, that's true. They weren't late. I guess they were 10 days longer than I thought they should be.
Okay, that's fair.
Let's give a pair of these away based on people that have subscribed to the podcast by February 1st.
Okay.
If you beat the February 1st deadline, sometime in January, up to midnight on the 31st.
Okay.
If you get your name, if you subscribe to Emotion Chips, go to emotionships.com. We will draw a winner. It might take a couple weeks to get them to you because they're back ordered, but we will. We will buy you a pair. Go to emotionships.com. Make sure that you are registered, and we will draw a winner on the episode closest to February 1st, which happens to be my daughter's birthday.
Oh, gosh. Happy birthday.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's coming up quick.
That is very quick.
Isn't it?
Yes. People, you better hop on now and subscribe.
Yeah. We'll get that out via social media.
It's great.
You know what I can't get over?
Tell me.
I cannot get over this news about Kobe Bryant that just hit.
It actually makes me feel physically sick.
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, just especially imagining, I can't imagine saying goodbye to my spouse and my child in one day. You know, just envisioning what life is like for his wife right now. It's overwhelming, to say the least.
It really is. Because even sometimes when we lose family members that maybe we're not as close to, you know, like a grandparent that we just have never had a deep relationship with,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they live in a different state, so we haven't dialogued with them a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's even easier to handle than someone you watched grow up, right? Like as you were growing up.
Right. You feel like you know him.
Yeah. And so Kobe came into the league when I was a junior in high school and then retired a couple of years ago. And so I watched his whole career, and you want to talk about a warrior and a competitor.
Yeah.
Just someone who would not give up and just worked so hard.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember being very I didn't want to like him when he started playing because, you know, I grew up around Chicago, and so I'm a Michael Jordan person.
Yeah.
And so I felt very protective of Michael Jordan, and so he was sort of threatened that for something for me. And so I was a little leery of him at first. But you know, as many of the articles that have come out on him have shared, he grew up in front of us. You know, I think he came into the league right out of high school. Yeah. And made some very public mistakes, and like we saw some redemption, I think, in him, and just where his life has been the past few years. I know he was a big supporter of women's basketball, the WNBA, and he was coaching his daughter, and he had nonprofit and was doing a lot of really good work.
Yeah.
That, you can just really connect to a story like that.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so much about it that hits home for me. Not only have we been through this last 25-year journey together,
He's your age.
Yeah, we are 3 months apart.
Yeah.
And so similar phases of life
Right.
with, he was going to be married to his wife, Vanessa, 20 years this year. Same for me and my wife.
Yep.
And he did make some mistakes that he owned, and we don't need to get into that, but I was reading this morning about that mistake drove him back to his faith. He was raised, part of his early childhood was in Italy, and his parents were Catholic, and he had stepped away or moved away from his faith. But I have a friend that lives down the street from him out in Huntington Beach, and some of the reports that you're seeing online or some of the stories that you're reading online of Kobe attending Mass every day is true, according to some of the people that, my friend that's down the street, and some of the articles that I have read says that he not only attended Mass every day, but that he actually attended Mass yesterday on the way to his helicopter.
Wow.
And so just trying to, as you said, trying to work through having your 13-year-old daughter on board with you, and all of the other people, all of the other team members.
Right. It's chilling. As sudden deaths always are, right? But you see things that he tweeted out or messages that he sent just minutes or hours or in the final days of his life, and I mean that sends chills down my spine to think of. I know, you've seen in the news that he had reached out to Shaquille O'Neal's son, literally that morning, that he passed away. And it's just the reality of, like, you never know. And I think about, like, I wonder how he left the house that day to go to the helicopter. Like, I wonder if it was a quick goodbye to his wife. Was she even home? We leave the house all the time and are saying goodbye as we're headed out the door to our loved ones. But you just never know.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that I often think about. And something like this draws us all to rethink about how we're living our lives, and, just to have a sense of gratitude and living each day as fully as we can.
I believe it's Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, that talks about we all have an appointed time. And it's something that we have to speak of cautiously and reverently, in light of how hard it is to be separated from those that we love. I've walked through situations similar to these with a couple of families over the last 10 years. And some of the things that you don't necessarily think about or see is just like, I can remember taking one of the families home from the hospital, where they rushed there to see if their child's life could be saved, only to be brought into a back room and the doctor come in and tell them that the child did not make it. And that in and of itself, just the shock that sets in. I can remember with that particular family, waiting for hours for other family members to get there, and then the news was getting out. They were telling their family members, and then the local news hears of it, and they were even there. But I can remember driving them back to their home that night, and they their 3-year-old went on to be with the Lord, and it was a sudden thing. And I can remember, especially the dad, but then the mom too, going and laying in his bed, going straight upstairs and grabbing the stuffed animal that he had slept with the night before.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that you wonder about, you know. Kobe and his wife Vanessa had 4 daughters. One of them is a newborn, 6 months old, 7 months old. And so the thing that I do know that is good is that as I have walked with people and beside people through these situations, there is a level of grace that they step into and that they have access to that we do not.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't necessarily make it easier. It just makes it bearable that they can get through it without shutting down.
Yeah.
And so I know that the Bryant family appreciates all of our prayers. But the truth of the matter is it's hard to look at the situation and not recognize what would be identified as a kairos. In the Greek classical language, there are 2 words for time. One of them is chronos, and so like with a watch, we have a chronometer on it that just keeps track of like daily time, normal time, chronos. And then the other word for time is kairos. And the word kairos means an appointed time, a special time. And I think it's in Luke 12 where Jesus is talking to the religious ruling class that really was corrupt. They were in it for themselves. They were making money off of the people's sacrifices. Jesus was just absolutely beside himself about it. And so if anybody or with anybody, Jesus was particularly hard on the religious ruling class that took advantage of people's burdens for their own benefit.
Yeah.
And so in Luke 12, he says, you guys are supposed to be the ones that help people identify special events in their life and be prepared for appointed times or special seasons or days in their life. You can do it because you guys identify whether or not tomorrow is going to be a good day weather-wise by looking at the sky. If it's red, right, it's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, there's harsh weather in store, and that's where that little saying comes: "Red sky at night, sailors
delight.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Red sky at morning,
sailors take warning."
Yeah, yep. And so Jesus is that literally goes all the way back to the time of Jesus. And in Luke chapter 12, he said, like, you guys are hypocrites because you can read the weather. If you put a little bit of effort into it, you can predict times and seasons, which will make, what he's saying is, that'll help you be prepared for them. But when it comes to these spiritual markers or very important times, like, you're not helping the people. And so it's hard to look at Kobe's situation and deny that this was a kairos, this was an appointed time. And I say that with as much respect as possible, but I also say it with the backdrop that to be reunited with God is a gift, not a punishment. And it's hard for us here, trapped and limited by our finite minds, to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is that to go to a place where there is no more sorrow, there is no more suffering, there is no more evil, like, what we're told is that we cannot comprehend how good the presence of God is, which really is the presence of wholeness and a lack or a lack of absence. And again, working through these thoughts as I stood beside families and was with families that had lost someone suddenly, It's hard to wrap our minds around it now. I think we will only be able to wrap our minds around it when we are in eternity and throughout eternity. But you look at Kobe just being the night before courtside to watch LeBron pass him with the scoring record, and for his last tweet to be something to LeBron about keeping basketball moving forward. You could look at his daughter, who was going to be with him on the helicopter accident, being with him, being courtside, and them loving on each other, and her getting underneath his arm. Like, all of these things that are present and such beautiful images for us now, even though they were beautiful before Kobe went on to be with the Lord. And I say went on to be with the Lord, like, I have no reason to, why would I ever question whether or not his relationship with God was real? Like, that's none of my or anyone else's business. But I can remember paying attention. It was either last week or the week before. I kept seeing things about Kobe Bryant. Things kept being brought to my attention, like the fact that Kobe came out and said that he wanted to do a better job of being courtside and supporting the NBA and specifically supporting LeBron. There's another thing last week that Kobe was in the news for, something was written about him. And I went to bed last night thinking to myself, like, man, this has happened to me before, where it seems like there were these breadcrumbs or signs, identifiers that something was going to happen, but I didn't necessarily have the ability to stop and recognize that things just kept popping up in what seemed to be an unusual way. And so then you look at kind of Kobe's last 24 hours, and you can see that an eternal energy was directing his steps and setting him up to leave the right way. You know, and I'm aware that this could come across as too soon or being too insensitive. But I think what helps me with that is understanding that though it is impossible to try to wrap our minds around what Kobe's wife and children and friends and family are going through, Kobe is still in a better place today than he was 2 days ago. And faith-wise, some of the books that you read from people that have had a life after death experience, I can remember, I think it's called To Heaven and Back, and her first name is Mary. And it's a true account of a brain surgeon that was kayaking with her husband down in South America. And her kayak gets tipped over. She's by herself. It gets tipped over, and she basically starts to drown. And because she knows what's going on with the brain, because she's a neurologist, she's basically tracking all of the steps that is happening with her body as she moves from this life into the next. And she says there comes a point where she's been trapped under the water and she loses consciousness, and it's at that moment that her body starts to drift, like her spirit starts to drift above the water. And now she's looking down as the rescue crews are getting her body unstuck and pulling her out of the water. I want to say that it's Mary Baxter, but I don't think that's correct. It's To Heaven and Back.
Okay.
We can put it in the show notes so people can find it. But she goes to heaven, and as she watches her body laying there on the shore, on the side of the river, and they're trying to resuscitate her, and she says that when she gets to heaven, the amount of light and the warmth and the presence of joy and happiness and goodness is so overwhelming that though her husband, who was with her at the time, and I think her 17-year-old son was still back here on earth, she did not want to come back.
Mm.
And she's being greeted in what appears to be heaven, what she identifies as heaven, by people she's familiar with, family members. And the Lord comes to her and says, I'm going to send you back. And she says, I don't want to go. Which, again, with the position that we're in today and having young children, like, we can't fathom that.
Right. Yeah.
And the Lord says, no, your husband needs to tighten up his relationship with me. And your son doesn't know me at all. And I believe it's her son that the Lord says, it's either her son or her husband, but it's been years since I read the book. I believe the Lord tells her that her son is going to pass, is going to be in an accident and pass away. And it's important that she go back to basically introduce her son to the Lord.
Yeah.
And so, really good book.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, it's a good book.
Yeah.
But what that book helped me with was just understanding that we can't, with our finite minds, we cannot comprehend how good eternity is going to be when there is no more suffering and there is no more sorrow and there is no more class warfare and poverty and drug abuse and addiction and all of these things. Another thing that she said was that the transition between heaven and earth was seamless and painless. That instantly, the moment she started to go, it was as if the Lord met her and started to comfort not only her emotional anxiety and upheaval, but also her physical pain.
Yeah. Wow. What a story.
Well, and I always go back to that.
Yeah.
When thinking of a situation like yesterday, I mean, the world is talking about Kobe Bryant.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's... I watched... The other thing that was really chilling for me was the Grammys were on the day that he passed away in the Staples Center, which, they call it the house that Kobe Bryant built. Yeah. And so just seeing all of these celebrities, it was almost awkward to have this like celebratory event on the day that he passed away, and so they did this really lovely tribute and put the spotlight on his jerseys that are hanging there in the Staples Center. But it was, just the whole, as you were saying, with the night before LeBron breaking his scoring record, it's remarkable, the whole kind of timeline of things. And so with Kairos, this idea of Kairos that you're introducing us to, what does that mean for us? Yeah.
Well, I think if you look at Kobe's life, and you can get into the idea that heaven is so much greater than anything that we could ever imagine. A Kairos is an appointed time. It's a strategic time, and I have no doubt that God will bring people alongside Vanessa, and there will be no replacing Kobe.
Yeah.
Or replacing, I believe, Gigi. I don't know that I would say God caused the accident by any means. I think God just knows how to use devastating moments like this to maximize the influence of a person's life, which they will benefit from for all of eternity, which means after we've lived 100 million years in the absence of fear and all of those other things, pain, depression, anxiety, we will have not, fractionally speaking, we will have not even gotten started. And so one of the things that I said to some of the families that I walked with through journeys like this is, though it's hard to fathom in our current state, our finite mind, I honestly believe that someday people that go through situations like this referring to Kobe in this situation, will thank God that God allowed them and their life to be a part of a process that changed so many people's lives.
Mm.
Because again, whether it's 70 years or in Kobe's case 41 years or 150 years, fractionally it does not even show up on the graph when we're talking about eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And so you just look at, a kairos can be small moments where you realize all of a sudden, like, man, I don't need to be doing that. This is not good behavior. And all of a sudden something quickens and you just finally can get over that thing you've been trying to get over for years. It can be something like that.
Okay.
It can be something in a relationship where you hear yourself for the first time, even though you've said it 100 times, and realize an emotion or an energy or a feeling behind what you've been saying, and you no longer need to do it anymore. Another kairos can be when you bump into someone for the first time. I'm in the process of finalizing a business relationship with someone that I was randomly introduced to years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. I called about a product I was interested in. It's a wellness product that we have over at Body Garage Dayton, and I instantly knew that was an appointed relationship, that there was something strategic about it. And I've never given up on the relationship. We haven't been able to stay close. I haven't been able to hire him as a professional up to this point in time. But I knew that it was a kairos, that it was a specific time. There was an appointment there that I just needed to keep my eye on. And so the idea is we move through life and every moment is special, but there comes times and seasons and days and moments that are like, it's an open door that we're supposed to walk through. And so, like Jesus, you'll spend 30 years of your life getting prepped and need to be ready to understand the importance of a kairos that's different than chronos, like an appointed time, like now's the time. And it can be positive things as far as like, hey, let's start this business. Let's work together to figure out how to get you hired. Or it can be something like the loss of someone that we grieve and mourn, and it's so hard on the front side. But as time passes, we realize God was working with this person to help as many people as possible.
So how do you know? How do you know that you are being faced with a kairos?
I mean, it's true. It's consistent on this podcast that awareness is such a big part of everything, that part of our daily routine needs to be aware of the difference between chronos and kairos. And so usually a kairos is something that is going to stand out or be something that is not normal, something that you were not planning on. Maybe it's someone that stops you as you're walking through the grocery store, and instead of blowing them off, treating it as if it were random, maybe you treat it as a kairos, and it's like, maybe they just need a smile. Maybe they need advice. You never know. I mean, I can remember going over probably 8 to 10 years ago. We were going over to see my brother and sister-in-law at their new house. And I really was not familiar with their area. And so I basically was just doing a little bit of exploring because I was going to be early to the party. And I drove through a couple of stop signs and got about a half a mile away. And I noticed basically a road that kind of, I could turn to the right, and it was really covered with trees. And so it was beautiful, but it seemed as if I were going to go out into a direction that I was unfamiliar with and did not want to take the time to do it. But I could remember having this moment that recognized something was different about the street, something was different about just how I was viewing it. Well, 10 years later, we end up buying a house right off of that street.
No way.
I mean, I can throw a water balloon from our house because our house is off that street. And so when it comes to energy, right, when we talk about emotion ships, the energy behind all of our relationships, it's eternal,
Yeah.
right? God stands outside of time, and he actually invites us into his kingdom. That's what Jesus talked about the most, to stand outside of time. And so what I think a kairos is just like God becoming more familiar with time and understanding that all time is necessary, but not all time is equal. That we spend a lot of chronos getting prepared, and God uses chronos to prepare us and to move us in a direction and to learn all kinds of things. But there are times and seasons where there is a kairos, an appointed, destined time, like a special time for things to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been thinking, as I was saying earlier, a lot of the messages that people are sharing right now in light of the death of Kobe is about like living life to the fullest and appreciating the people around you and all of that stuff, which is all good. And of course I agree with it, but those are the messages that it's almost like you could copy and paste them from one tragic event to the next, because these are like wake up calls for us, right? Where you realize, oh my goodness, life is so incredibly fleeting. And so I've been thinking about like, how do you actually like let that message like live with you, right? Rather than just popping up again and again when something tragic happens. And it's made me think a lot actually about the 20-mile march and like having that time in the morning where I am like in prayer and I'm meditating and I'm just by myself, allowing myself to kind of take it all in, like the goodness of life and my day and even what you're referring to about just awareness and being fully where you are, right? Like I am on this street and I feel like something big is happening, but I don't know what it is. And then 10 years later, you get to see what it is. But if you're not where you are emotionally, mentally, physically, all of that, then you miss it.
Well, and that's the reason why I think so many people are disenfranchised with the church and disenfranchised with the idea of God, because everything has been set up for us to be anything but present.
Right.
But present is where God is currently interacting with humanity, to include ourselves.
Yeah.
And so if you're anxious, you're already living in tomorrow. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? Right?
Right.
And so same thing with being depressed, right? You're living in yesterday.
Yeah.
And so God is interacting in the present moment, and our opportunity is not to get lulled away or pulled out of the present moment by what good or bad could happen tomorrow or what happened to us yesterday.
Right.
And so being present protects us, because it actually allows us to enter a partnership and start seeing some of these things and start developing eternal qualities and competencies prior to being just an eternal spirit.
Yeah.
Meaning, and I say just an eternal spirit because we are actually spirits with bodies. We are not bodies with spirits. And you'll live your life one of two of those ways. But the people I know, see, so there's certain things that you only know once you get to experience them. And the thing that millionaires and billionaires and people that have a lot of money know that other people that don't have money do not know is money doesn't make you happy.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't spend your life trying to get it only to be one of the people that have already told you and gone on record saying, I was happier when I did not have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what commercials say, because they have a desired direction, right? They are cultivating and churning intentional energy to get you to buy their product, right? So that they can stay in business.
Sure.
And so there are things that people know through experience that people that have not had that experience do not know. What Kobe would tell you, and we see some of these interviews on Instagram that he did, back in 2015 with SportsCenter. Kobe would tell you it's all about influence. It's all about changing people's lives and being a force for good. He was passionate about young people.
Yeah.
He was passionate about children and having an opportunity to influence as many young people as possible.
And that is what, when I was watching the Grammys and sitting there holding my newborn, and just like floored at the magnitude of his life, right? And just how many people have been influenced by him in one way or another, and we all have a platform to do that. And it sounds cheesy, but even like what you're saying of being aware when you're in the grocery store, like, should I stop and talk to this person? I am so guilty of disruption, like allowing disruption in my life, right? Because I have a to-do list to get through. I have places to be, blah, blah, blah. But that is not what's going to, like, I don't want that to be my legacy.
Yeah.
She completed her to-do list. Like, please. And so being able to remain aware of what my platform is and how I can influence people and support them, and because that's what we're talking about now, right? Now that he's no longer on this earth, and yet he has a legacy that far exceeds what I'm sure he even imagined, and that's not just reserved for him.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's an end of his time here on earth, an end to the story of his time here on earth that no one saw coming, right? And obviously, as we all grieve and mourn, there's room to disagree with whether or not that was the appropriate end of the story.
Sure.
But the truth of the matter is, it's not the end of the story. That the story will continue to live on through others as his life continues to motivate people to be different.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, the way we think it ended with this helicopter crash can actually serve the long-term story even better if it's about impact.
Yeah.
It's not something I want myself or my family to go through.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, if you're looking at the big picture, his life will continue to live in the hearts of millions of people every day that were motivated by him to make a difference.
Yeah.
I was asked to be the keynote speaker years ago for my grandmother's 50-year tenure or time at the school that she and my grandfather started. And then she worked there for 50 years and was retiring as the guidance counselor. And so they had a banquet and they asked if I would be the keynote speaker. And I ended my talk with the following line. And that was, if you die with a dream in your heart, you die a dreamer. But if you die with a dream in their heart, you die a legacy.
Did you write that?
Yeah.
Wow. That's good.
Surprise.
I like that.
And it was true of my grandmother. Like, my grandmother influenced and still is influencing so many people each and every year. And you don't have to influence 100 people or 1,000 people or 10,000 or 10 million. You got to influence one. And the story keeps going.
Right.
And so Kobe's story and Kobe's life will continue to live on. His legacy will continue to live on because he put the dream that he had, an average boy, can play basketball, can achieve his dreams, can go on and start businesses, can recover from what some would say is a fatal mistake, to be a family guy and to be successful.
Yeah.
And so if you die with a dream in your heart, you die a dreamer. If you die with a dream in their heart, you die a legacy. Yeah. And that's what I think we have with the life of Kobe Bryant. Like, he's a legacy.
Yeah. It was really cool seeing all of the NBA games that took place on the day that he died, and the shot clock violations that they would take in order to honor him. And that crossed whatever NBA team was playing. I think every game on the day of his death did that, because he was so much bigger than one team or one sport or one country. I mean, his impact was worldwide.
Yeah. I think I would have been like Kyrie. I don't know that I could have played, honestly.
Yeah.
Kyrie took a leave of absence for personal reasons. I mean, I know Kobe, like Carmelo Anthony said, I know that Kobe would have told all of those guys to keep the game moving forward and to play. I don't know that I could have.
Yeah.
You know, I
Which
mean,
I think, there's something to be said, maybe it's another episode, just about the role of grief, even though we know, or intellectually we know that he is in a better place. Like, I believe that.
Sure.
And yet, it's so sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so painfully sad.
Yeah. No, 100%. And there is definitely the need for and the role of grief that is actually strength. It's not weakness.
Mm-hmm.
It's appropriate. It's coming to grips with the reality of what has happened.
Yeah.
And there should be no shame involved with that.
Right.
That just because we can by faith believe that God is up to something big does not mean that we are not humans that need to grieve and work through a grieving process.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's important.
But it watching those moments yesterday was just it really was something special to see how Kobe had affected these players' lives to such an extent that, you know, I mean, they had a hard time functioning.
Right. Yeah.
And so we move forward knowing that each and every day we have an opportunity to make a difference in other people's life. When we talk about, in closing, as we talk about things that you don't know until you experience it, like wealthy people know that money won't make you happy.
Mm-hmm.
It actually can complicate things. I think one of the things that Kobe knew, because of how hard he worked and how much he accomplished, is that the world does not exist to serve us. The world and the people in it and the opportunities that come our way do not exist to serve us. The world and the people in it exist for us to find our place in serving them and serving it.
Right.
And it should be just a reminder to us that when our schedule goes a different way or something happens, right, that we weren't planning on or we're not excited about, that in and of itself can be a kairos.
Sure.
That though I wasn't planning on it or I'm not excited about it, it's an opportunity to double down on the fact that the world exists and the people in the world exist to be served, not to serve my needs or make me feel comfortable or make me feel like I'm the most important person ever.
Right.
Clearly, Kobe had influence with others because though he was as good as he did not act as if the world and the people in it existed to make him happy.
And I think that's what's so motivating about Kairos and just the idea that in any given moment, especially if things are not going your way, it is an opportunity to impact someone or to make a difference or to find your place in the world, even if it's uncomfortable or if it looks different than you might anticipate it looking.
Yeah, Jocko Willard, who wrote the book Intentional. Let's see here. Hold on.
Oh, it's coming.
Yes. Former SEAL wrote a book on leadership. Just talks about the role of embracing anything that comes your way. And his word is good, right? Like everything just fell apart. Good. This is much tougher than I thought. Good.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like we're going to get out of this one. Good. Because often we can respond and the body can do so much and be so resilient that hurdles and the unexpected should be viewed as opportunities to grow and become a person of more influence. And so I think what that has meant for me is how many times can I keep doubling down on this idea that no matter how different it is from what I thought it should be, this is an opportunity for me to grow and to become a person of influence that sees the world as something to serve versus something that serves me and exists to serve me.
Yeah. Well, and that's what'll get you moving, right? If you think the world's here to serve you, then you've got something else coming for you.
Well, it ends up leaving you disappointed and underprepared for the life that you want to live.
Sure.
Because you always saw it as you always saw the situation as something that was unexpected and that could harm you or that would disappoint you versus an opportunity to grow you and strengthen you and make you that much closer to being a person of influence.
Mm-hmm. That's why we say that life is happening for you, not to you.
Yeah, and that came from
your speech for your grandma.
No, yeah, right. That came from Nelson Mandela, who was in prison and was asked, "How did you survive this?" And he said, "I chose to believe that life was happening for me, not to me."
Yeah, it's remarkable. I mean, that living by that will change everything.
I'm going to look up the name of this book with Jocko.
Is it the one that we all read together?
Yes. What was that?
Oh, not intentional.
I wanted to say that it was intentional leadership, but I don't know that's the case.
It's something leadership. Extreme ownership.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Way to go, Mel. Extreme ownership. And that's
a great book.
Yeah, that's his idea of just like embrace it.
Yeah.
And realize that it's an opportunity to grow and develop more influence when it comes to people.
Mm-hmm.
So
we gave that book away one year on Father's Day for the dads in our midst.
Yeah.
Great book.
That is it for Emotion Ships, the 6th episode. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Charlie Carroll, signing off with my lovely co-host, Mallory